All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carolyn Armitage, the founder and CEO of RIA Circle. And for today's workshop, I'm delighted to introduce you to Jen Goldman. She is the founder and CEO of My Virtual COO. And this is one of those growing segments of the industry that so many advisors are leaning into because it can help you scale in such a dramatic way. As you know, the personnel is the largest expense you have on your income statement. So being able to expand and grow in a virtual way as opposed to needing to have so many fixed costs, Jen can be your superstar. So Jen, would love to introduce you to RA Circle.
I'm so happy
Have
to
you
be
take
here.
over.
Thank you for this. Awesome. Awesome. And as I'm playing around with the technology, we're going to get to it and I will share my screen
Thank you.
and jump right in. Yep. And let's just make sure I share the proper screen as always. So we're good to go? Thumbs up?
Yeah, looks great.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So I am always excited to talk about this. I realize coming into this that what you really want to hear is stories of successes. You want to avoid any failures, and you certainly want to know who I am. So I'm just going to give you just a quick primer on me, only for the reason that you understand that I've kind of been around in the industry and seen a lot of things. So I'm just going to give you the visual intake of my past history. Started at M&T Bank, lots of jobs before then, but we don't need to talk about Buffalo, New York that much. M&T Bank quality control through Smith Barney and their training program onto a little bit of VC and wealth. And then from there, joined a multifamily office firm. At the time, the owner basically said, we're at 43 people and I'm tired of managing people. And so decided it was time for accepting an acquisition. So did work with them to overhaul that, did it for three more firms, and then started COO right before the 2008 crash. So that is my background in the industry. When I'm talking with you, one of the things I'm so proud of and also want to bring to you is that in all the work that we've done, there is return on investment. There's also return on energy. And we put a lot of emphasis on that because I don't know about where you stand in this moment of listening to this, but most of our leaders are a little tired. So this is about giving you a boost and giving you some ideas to scale, merge, be saleable. All right, so who benefits from what we're going to discuss today? It's anyone who's trying to scale. And what I mean by that is grow internally to support growth of clients, considering scaling and want to know what it takes, going into a merger, considering a merger, curious, we got a lot of curious cats out there, and tired and want an easier path forward, which is most often the checkbox we get.
I gotta tell you, Jen, I hear from advisors all the time of all of those.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean that's we laugh and revel and cry at the same time, literally here, because we feel it as an owner too.
Hmm.
Right. So the ad is
Absolutely.
they're checking all the boxes and we're going, yeah, feel it, we understand it. So yeah, we're there with you. But the joys of running a business are wonderful. So let's just keep going. Okay, so what we'll cover. We're going to cover the pillars to scaling emerging successfully. We're going to just talk about the why. Why do we want to strengthen those pillars? I'm going to give you the how techniques. We're going to talk about how to prioritize because that's another juggle. What do I do first, second, and third? And then wrap up. So that's the intent for today. Okay, so let's talk about the four pillars. And we tried to make this easy with mnemonics. So we call it the four Ps. And we always start with the people. So when we talk about strengthening for scale or merger, we always want to get alignment around people, then alignment around productivity, profits, and then presence internally and externally. So again, it's the four Ps: people, productivity, profit, and presence. We'll come back to these, no worries, but this is where we're going to focus today. So if you're you're here for a reason to learn something that will help you scale maybe, or maybe go into the merger. And the reality is I want to give you a little bit of stats around this because strengthening the pillars has so many implications across both the scaling and the merging. And we all know that the cost of doing nothing, obviously, is far greater than the effort of doing something. But let me give you a little bit more oomph and boost. 80% of consumers have been polled to say they prefer to buy from a brand that has not been acquired. This is probably higher now. This is a little bit old data from last year, but acquisitions are signaling identity loss. And people don't like that. People get attached to brands, they get attached to people. Value erosion, 30 to 70% of value can erode when you lack the foundational elements. To us, the foundational elements are the 4 Ps. Okay. And a lot of owners want to sell to an internal successor, but they don't have a plan to make it happen. If you work on the 4 Ps, you at least can set a potential plan or know there is no plan to be made. And at least now you know your path is not internal succession, but you've tried everything to try to make that happen. Also, too, let's be honest. If we have younger people up and coming that want to be considered a successor, and there are signs that it isn't even considered because you haven't strengthened the business to allow them to become successor, that obviously loses a rock star staff person, either mentally or they physically leave. And we all.
Jennifer, I just have a quick question. I've heard over and over as companies scale and get bigger, it becomes incredibly hard for the next gen to acquire because they don't have the funds. They don't want to take on the debt. It's, yeah, I mean, yeah,
You want me to speak to that?
sure.
Absolutely. The reality is if you're doing this planning and strengthening, one of the 4 Ps is profits. So what firms are doing that are truly into this, I want to remain independent. I want that Gen 2 or that Gen 3, as they're really looking at the numbers and saying, how much do I really need to take out of the business for myself as a founder? How much can I leave in to do an internal financing plan?
So Lee, you can either provide the financing directly, seller financed, or Opal could take out a loan from the bank. You pay the note back to the bank every month and take the money out of the employee's compensation before they receive their compensation to pay for that note. It's actually a very efficient way. If you, as a business owner, you and Jesse were comfortable doing that, it is a very tax efficient way as opposed to giving the employee the money.
Sounds similar to an ESOP plan without the retirement aspect.
Yeah, not an ESOP though.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's a fixed value,
Yep.
which doesn't give the best financial value to you and Jesse in an ESOP.
Mhm.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, no, great question. And the reality is, I think on the financing side, to me, that's numbers. You guys are experts at that, right? It is more the emotional side and the ability to become Gen 2 that we're seeing the issue with.
Yeah, I just see the Gen 2 doesn't want to take on the bank debt themselves. They are very uncomfortable taking
Yeah.
it on, right? So I guess
Yep.
the
Yep.
existing owners have to take on all that risk and all that debt because
Mhm.
if the Gen 2 backs out, we're still
Mhm.
stuck with the debt.
Correct.
Yeah.
But you can also get the business back. I've seen that happen where the
Yeah.
keys go back to the owner, the original
Yeah.
founder. Not always a great situation. So there's pros and cons to it, but as Jen mentioned, it is mostly an emotional play of you want to hand down the firm to those that helped bring you along and
Right.
create that success.
Cool.
Keep going with questions. Same with you, Karen. As Carolyn knows, I love interactivity. So if it's quiet, I get home. All right. So the result of no strengthening, the low growth, the rust succession, or maybe it's the lack of, right? Or the disengagement. We've seen it. I mean, this information that I put on this slide are actually real true stories. Nobody wants to publish them. Nobody wants anyone to know. It is happening all the time. So, okay, merging versus scaling. We're very different about these two, right? The merging is obviously coming in with someone else. Like it's literally, it's not a 50-50 on the finance side necessarily, but it's the best of both worlds. The scaling is staying independent, not merging with another firm, and just infrastructure scale up while you have growth of clients, of the client base. Right. I'm just going to mention that because we use those terms often in interchange. So how to strengthen the four pillars? These are the four pillars again. Let's jump into this, and it's going to go back, actually lead to part of your question. I'm going to delve a little deeper into that. So the first off is you guys don't give yourselves enough credit, but I believe, I come from the industry, that leaders are constellation thinkers most often. And if they're not, they need to become this. To scale or to merge, you have to think of all the elements of the business and how they're intercorrelated. If I may use Lee as an example of what you mentioned, okay? We have to think of our profitability and our equity and what we want to take out as founders, but also what we want the next gen to buy into and to pay into. But we also have to think about our talent. Do they have the skills? Do they have the personality to be Gen 2? Right? We have to think about our processes and what might change by having Gen 2 come in and how to extract Gen 2 from the day to day because they need the time to learn the skills you have as a founder. So there's lots of different pieces. So I say we have to adopt constellation thinking, aka relational complexity, as we go through scaling and merging.
I call it four-dimensional chess. And this slide shows exactly what I'm doing this week. Every one of them.
Or every day, right?
Every
Like,
day,
I mean,
yeah.
to be honest, this is when I'm tired. I don't know what to do next. It's because you are juggling all this throughout a given day.
Yeah, I have 5 calls today on 5 of these different things. So yes.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And in each one of those different things uses a different part of your brain. And I don't want to get all into the neuroscience. We've done enough. I'm certainly not trained as a doctor or a neurosurgeon. I've read enough to know that you do not fire the same part of your brain for each of these items. So hence the exhaustion. It's fine. Okay, so how do we get clarity around people? Let's go through that first. There's 3 things, and we call it ARC, again, mnemonics to help us. Authority roles clarified, responsibilities clarified, and then taking care of capacity, care, competency. Okay, let me show you what I mean by all of this. So as you can imagine, this can be built in Excel. Happy after this call to give the templates. We never spend enough time defining levels of authority around the business. So mapping this out collaboratively with the team is a game changer. I'm going to tell you some stories around this. This mapped, again, as a team is a game changer. And when you map this as a team, you include your providers in this because our outside providers are also filling gaps of skills, capacity, expertise, right? So when we talk about merging or scaling our people, how to give them a career path, this starts to lay out the groundwork for it. Let's say our Gen 2 is sitting in the middle at a coordinator. We know they need to go through the effort of managing someone. Then they need to be at the strategy table and helping proactively bring ideas to then become the decision maker. To leap from the low level to the top, you cannot do. Your brain can't do it. You don't have the experience doing it. You don't have the fails. So this is by far one of the biggest game changers. Now, this helps with scaling. How does this help with merging? We just worked with 2 firms that are literally doing a merge of best of both worlds and did this with the 2 founders. And this is where the clarity came in of together, here's where you're going to sit and make decisions, and here's where I'm not going to sit. So they worked through that friction instead of merging together and then figuring it out, which is the worst time to do it. They figured it out in advance. They started plunking in their people into here. So before they even signed and inked, they knew how people were going to work with each other and they knew where their gaps were. Any questions? Common sense?
Yeah,
Oop.
just the so you're actually going through and all the different departments, like in plopping ops people in and on like when you're identifying gaps, then you call senior implementer, like of what? Of the merger of any project? What do you?
Yep. So let me use a specific. Senior implementer for marketing might be the person that actually finishes the blog post and publishes them. The strategist is the person that decides how many blog posts and what content.
Okay.
Okay. You're asking a really good question. In a merger, you might have one person working on what's the new investment platform, what are the new product mixes, and that person might be in the strategist field. But the other person who's in the senior implementer might be the one that's going to turn on the new system. Like if you're merging into a new system. So what
Yep.
works for your own business before a merger also works going into the merger, basically is what I'm
Okay.
saying.
Got it.
Yep. So let's take it down a notch. Responsibilities mapping. Again, I want to be very clear. This is not done in a vacuum by a founder. This is done as a team, circle of trust. Everybody jumps in. And the explanation is we're going to do this so we can acknowledge each other's workloads, celebrate everything, all the hats people are wearing, and also look for ways to shed. So that IDEOS nomenclature in there, again, you know I'm into mnemonics. It's the idea of integrating, delegating, eliminating, outsourcing, or staffing differently. As you scale, you have to come back to what people are doing and look for ways to move things around without anyone feeling they're losing their job, they're losing their value proposition to the business, or they're out of control because somebody else is deciding for them. Another game changer.
Yeah.
And just to be fair for you two and anyone else listening who may be in the C-suite, right? You are wearing multiple hats. So back to Lee, what your day feels like, and maybe yours, Karen, we need to call that out because how does Gen 2 identify what hats they want to wear if you haven't identified?
That's fair.
Yep.
Jen, can I ask, will you go
Yeah.
through IDEOS again? Because that was pretty fast for
Oh,
people
yeah, yeah.
watching the video.
I think I have a whole slide for it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I can verbalize these stories. Um, Let me just give you one of three. I'm going to pick the middle one because I want to tell you that without even looking at productivity and profits and presence, the idea of just the role and responsibility mapping is a game changer. So we were working with a firm that was around 2.5 mil run rate for revenue. And they, from that exercise, literally that took 3 calls, I would say about a month and a half, they solidified that they needed a director of staff. It was clear as day. And then we tied in the director of staff would free up the CEO to offboard an overcompensated advisor who had unprofitable clients. So literally paid for itself if you want to talk about ROI. And then from there, the wrong fit advisor was offboarded. You have a chief of staff managing the team. Now the CEO founder is able to secure a national referral partnership that he was thinking about in a niche that was close to his heart and home. And that led to increasing the client experience, expanding the entire client base, and affording 3 new hires. It was just, I could have never, to be fair, not you don't know all this is going to happen, but you know something good will from the clarity around this. And in this case, it was a doubling of revenue. And just to tell you the niche, it was helping a lot of widows navigate financial management. So proud to be a part of that. That's the story. Again, just from role and responsibility mapping. Everything else came after. So there's lots of stories behind what these techniques do, as simple as they look. Okay, productivity alignment. This is an old map. I'm told this is too busy. but this is reality for a lot of firms. There's probably 20 to 40 logos. And quite frankly, the most fun is mapping this out and then graveyarding some things that you don't need anymore. So we talk about people. Now let's talk about productivity. Too many systems, don't know which ones to use, processes across the board. We have to start nixing and clarifying. So what this mapping does, first of all, it's fun. It can be done on a whiteboard. It can be done on an electronic whiteboard like I've done here. It allows you to say, well, what data is flowing from one system to another? It allows you to take this map and send it to your tech providers and say, what am I missing that we could turn on? So now you put the work on them for free to find out what you're missing out on. And it allows you to graveyard items that no longer are needed. For scaling, this is productivity. For merging, this is absolutely a necessity to be done in advance. So just like roles was collaborative, you can throw all your things up from the two different firms, see what things overlap, when things might be graveyarded, and work through all of that in advance. Any questions on this? It is a lot of information.
Well, I guess just we're in the middle of doing something now about this, but yes, all these systems, and it's great to graveyard them, but you still need the functionality, and not all of them talk to each other. Not all of them integrate. Not all of them share data. So then you talk about you have to build a data warehouse, but that's really expensive. Then you can rent a data warehouse, and that's expensive. And oversimplified, yes, and getting your tech stack to do what you need to do to get efficiencies is really challenging.
It is. What we see often though is the struggle is it's one person struggling with that. So the visualization of these elements of the business make the structure stronger. They make the foundation stronger, but they also let the team identify goals. Like, yes, today we have to live with systems that don't talk to each other. But now we know where we have a gap that's causing labor. Let's aim for, as we're out there, as we're learning, as we're out in the, talking to peers, let's listen for the next thing, not the shiny object. I'm very clear about that.
Yeah.
But I think it's putting it in front of everyone. So no one person, no one founder, no one executive is alone in this. That's the whole
Okay.
point.
So you're talking about C-suite, not everyone in the company.
Oh no, everyone in the company.
Everyone in the company. Okay.
Oh yes, because honestly, our younger people are the first to identify gaps and solutions.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm so happy to have that happen. I don't know about you, right?
Great.
Or it's the outlier. Yeah, no, this type of information all is an all company information. So let me just take that to life. So some people do this on an electronic board, and then they print it and they stick it up on a whiteboard in an internal hallway or in the lunchroom, right? Other firms are fully remote. So what do? They pull this up once a quarter. They might spend 5 minutes on it and just say, hey, has anything changed? Anything we forgot to update? And that just the experience of visually seeing identifies wins. It's neuroscience. Yeah. Yeah. It was back to on your question, Carolyn. Okay. So with technology, we also kind of tie in processes, right? And processes done well reduce the workload of communicating to somebody else what they should do or how they should do it. What is best to do with processes is to apply Lean Six Sigma. But if I said that to you, you'd be like, that's over my head. Like, I'm not going to read the book. Don't give that to me. So this is our way of teaching you how to do Lean Six Sigma simply. When you go through a process with a staff member, or the staff member is asked to take a look at a process and bring new ideas to the table, we say, ideose it. The question is, when you look at a process, what systems can I integrate to send data to each other to reduce the work and also increase compliance, right? What can I delegate from one person on the team to another? Because maybe that new person taking it on needs to be upskilled. And this is a great way to upskill them is by sending them the work with some instruction. Third is elimination. And there's two parts of elimination. One is the system eliminates because it's actually doing the work, or the other elimination is you agree to stop doing something. When we do process work with firms, that eliminate is the groan in the room. When they see what they're doing and they look at it visually, that's the, oh, I can't believe I'm still doing that. Why are we still doing that? That E is big. The outsource, you guys know, right? Using outside providers and staffing differently is just recalibration of your people. Or maybe it's a hire, right? Like, this is clear. We have the profits. We need to hire and fill that gap. Nobody wants to do that work. Nobody's really good at that work. Nobody has a passion for that work. Time to hire. We apply this with everything we do. It's become, and in some businesses, this has become their mantra. Every time they sit down and talk strategically about a client experience or growth, market, anything, they apply the IDEOs. Good.
Jennifer, have you had, I'm going to dive right in with something that's top of my mind, compliance. So we recently acquired another firm, and so our compliance load is just a lot more. And I have an employee that wears a bunch of hats, and one of them is chief compliance officer. And she is coming to me saying, I can't do it anymore. You have to hire somebody. And I'm thinking, well, before I go hire a whole new person, let's think about this. And have you used this little slide here? I use it with that kind of process.
Yes. So what we've done is we've taken that responsibilities, the columns in the responsibilities chart, the map, along with this IDOs, and we've sat with these three visuals, okay? Responsibilities, IDOs, and the tech map, and we've sat there and looked. And let me explain the neuroscience. I don't have this in the slides. The neuroscience is when you visually show something, the person's amygdala kicks in, which is your rational, I'm sorry, wrong. The prefrontal cortex kicks in, which is rational, calm thinking. So by seeing those three different elements, responsibilities, right? The IDEOS concept and the tech map, and seeing it visually, they won't freak out, their brain will flow, and they will come up with new ideas of how to get rid of the work. It's an accelerator. Then when you're left, and I'm just going to go back because this is.
Sorry, Lee, helpful for you.
No, I love this. I'm a teacher I come from a family of teachers, so this is my jam. When they do that exercise of visually looking, they start putting things in the shed column. And then what we do is the next step is we start to think, do they get automated or do they get to a new hire? So if you saw a real live map here, we'd have a new column for the new hire. We also have a column for automate. And so as you look at each responsibility, that person, your compliance person, should move it into the automate column or the new hire column. And by the way, that's your job description then.
Yeah, but what if I don't want a new hire?
You probably won't need to.
Okay.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. By just looking at the tech, the responsibilities and thinking IDOs, they may come up with ideas where you don't have to hire. You just have to use systems differently.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. We do a lot of this work. Firms think when they work with us, they think they have to hire a lot of people. Okay, they're overwhelmed, they're trying to grow. Most often they don't, just to be fair. Now, we love employees. We believe in them, but you've got to be crystal clear and prove that you need that next hire.
Absolutely.
This is exercise not to do. And by the way, that teaches that C-suite person, because it's CCO, also about profitability. Like, okay, you need to go through this exercise, but also too, we need to have the ability to invest in that. That might take us away from doing something else on the strategy list.
Yeah.
Teaches them ownership, which comes natural to you or natural to Lee or owners, right? Your brains are clicking through all of that. They don't know to even think of it. That only took me like 20 years to realize, by the way. When we were doing the work, I'm like, well, how does everybody not understand this? Yep. Okay. There's other elements in here too that might help with what you're dealing with. I'll try to tie them in just like I would with what Lee said. All right, so 3 is profit. And that goes into the play of, well, do we add more staff for the sake of just having more bodies? Do we add more staff because we have a need? Do we change our compensation around our rock star people? There's so many questions to be asked. So we all know we should know our numbers before anybody else decides them for us. The most simple thing that we almost never see done, so if you're doing this, pat yourselves on the back, is the P&L projection. Take your old P&L, split it out by month, start adding new rows for potential new revenue and potential new expenses, and look at that bottom line. The
We do that in the
visualization,
budget. We do that in our budgeting process every year. We
that's
build
great.
out, and then it's dynamic, and we update it every time we're going to do a new hire or a new investment.
That's great. And do you do it by month? So you
Month,
time.
month by
Yep.
month.
Perfect. Perfect. Yep. The visualization alone helps you decide timing, right? I mean, everything about it is a must-have. Now, going into a merger, I don't, Carolyn, I'd leave that to you. How much people will share their P&Ls. Again, we've just been part of a later merger where they were completely open and put everything on the table in advance. So we blended the two P&Ls together and then did a 3-year projection with all, like, again, what staff do we need to hire? What systems do we need to shut down or add? So they knew, so they actually, the elder owner knew going in, they were going to be financially sound. And the P&L projection also tells you business development stressors. Like, do we need to turn on a faucet around sales, or are we okay?
Yeah,
The
we
napkin.
do it. We do a very detailed budgeting with all those different components, and we can apply different factors to growth and new
Sure.
hires and
Yeah, you just
look
don't
at
want to
it.
make it so complicated that nobody wants to keep it up to date, or nobody understands it, or nobody trusts it. So,
Right.
yeah, happy medium. Okay, napkin projection, and I will actually show you a little bit more detail on this one. It's very hard to show actively in a short deck. But what's a napkin projection? I think, Lee, you're alluding to it, but it's the idea of what does your P&L look like today? What are your revenue goals 5, 10 years from now? And then what is the projection around your people and staffing, your additional comp and expenses?
Yeah, it's
And
hard to
what
do
is,
it. It's hard to do it multiple years out because you don't know what you don't know.
there it is.
You can project revenue, but compensation changes so much and your
Yep.
needs change so much depending on yeah.
Yep. Yep. We built a napkin and we call it that with all of you because as much as I was a senior financial planner, I no longer am. And so I will always say that any planner would probably come into this and say, I think I could change a few things. But what we built is a model where you're sticking in your current, your future, which is a 10-year look, which is really far out. And then it backs into staffing. And it makes some assumptions which you can change, right? You guys
Yeah.
are all capable of this. I just think it's taking the time to do it. And of course, making sure there's no circular formulas. But again, doing the rough map around, well, what is the investment of a CSA versus the investment of an advisor? We have a general sense of compensation these days. So we can throw in standard numbers. We have great studies from all the custodians and other institutions. We now have AI that can give us compilation of data. But to do this is to get real about really where you want to land. I know it seems crazy. I'm giving you the now and the future of the 10 mil to the 50 mil, but I cannot tell you how many firms have come to us that are in that 10 mil market range and tell us their goal is 50. The minute you do the projection, they say, I don't want to manage that many people. That's it's not the numbers. So, oh, that's how great. Or, oh my God, we have to bring in that many clients at our average revenue per client. We're not in for that. I think it's really important. It also is definitely important, first of all, going into a merger that you're on the same page about growth and investment, but also when you're scaling, especially if you have Gen 2, they have never done this exercise. So having them put together, if you have a good enough team of Gen 2s and advisors, make this an exercise that they put together and build.
Who is typically doing this? Is this the CFO, your COO? Who is preparing this? Is
Usually the
team?
founders, because they're curious.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, for us, it's a template. There's only 10 variables in here that you have to plunk in or change the assumptions. So it's more looking at it and digesting it and having, either great epiphanies or freakouts. It can
All
go
right.
either way.
Yeah, Lee, I would say from my experience, it's mostly an outsourced CFO,
Yeah.
or it's a banker or a consultant like myself. It's usually external to a firm up until you get 10 billion and over.
Yeah.
Then it's insourced because it is sophisticated Excel work.
Yeah.
It's also, Carolyn, maybe you would agree or disagree, it's emotional. And you have to be very careful when you're doing things like this to not put your emotions into it. We all know that we can manipulate Excel.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
We can bury in a formula a bad assumption
Yep.
based on the wrong. Yeah,
Of how you want it to come out.
that's exactly right.
Yes, definitely.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
I do agree with your assertion that the complexity becomes overwhelming for a lot of advisors. And that oftentimes is why they merge with another firm to be able to offload the compliance work or the operations work or the people management component, where a lot of advisors aren't trained on that. It just becomes too much.
Mhm.
Others see this and get really jazzed by it and enthusiastic because they want to build an empire.
Right.
I get jazzed by it. I'm excited about this.
That's good. Stay jazzed, spread it. That's all good. Yeah, to be fair, let's just stay on this for 1 second. As overwhelming as it is, I had that conversation to say sometimes we grow to hand the C-suite hats to someone else, not just to grow for sake of growth or not to grow just for sake of profits, but because certain founders want to be a part of that bigger business and have a greater impact on consumers, but they just don't want to wear all the hats they're wearing. Well, then you got to grow to afford to hire
Yep.
and hire well, right? Like hire that person isn't waiting for you to tell them what to do, when and how every second of the day.
Yep.
Okay. So so far we did the people, we did the productivity, we did the profit. The fourth pillar is presence. Now I'm going to sit on this for 1 second, although it's going to distract your brains. I just realized. When we say presence, we don't just mean external presence. We don't just mean marketing and selling, and we mean internal. We read about it enough, but if our team doesn't understand what we're doing, who we're doing it for, and all of that, that just doesn't make it out to the universe in a good way. So one of the things that we've done is we've said whether merger or scaling, do the client experience mapping, but think about it from an operations standpoint as well. So often we see these because a lot of consultants, we all believe in this, right? We know we should know our segments. We should know what we deliver to them in our processes. We actually add profitability in. We also add into it understanding the servicing team of today and the future servicing team. Gen 2 has to be acknowledged. They're in the future waiting to be told, now you will lead and manage that client without me, the founder. We have to start mapping that in advance. We also have to put boundaries around communication. We forget in part of the client experiences, again, no judgment, but a founder might be fine for the client to reach out on Saturday afternoon or Sunday evening on their cell phone and call them. But Gen 2 wants no part of that. They want to know there's boundaries. So all of these things matter. So again, mapping collaboratively, and Lee, I'm going to, this is not in character. You would not do this work as the C-suite. This is given to the client service admin, the associates, the advisors to do. Because it'll be a real eye opener when you see what they put in there or the gaps, because they don't know. So client experience mapping with operations in mind, big win. Also for all merging, obviously you want to know the differences. And then you want to find ways to merge. So you're mapping separately, then you're bringing it together, and then you're deciding. This is where some firms before merging actually shed their lowest segment. They might sell it. They might sell it with an advisor who doesn't want to be a part of the merger or a part of a bigger business. All sorts of renditions. Okay, this one's a little bit blurry because I did have to make it bigger, so I apologize. Presence alignment is more of your external. So the other one was more internal, although you could use it to flip it around and make a brochure in marketing. This is more external. Unfortunately for us, when we see P&Ls, compensation, of course, is the biggest investment and absolutely should be. The second biggest investment that doesn't have great ROI is around marketing. And the numbers are huge and they're scary. So this is how to get a grip around your marketing from the minute somebody is introduced to you and how they're tracked through. And just the visualization, this mapping, will point out all the things that you should get rid of. And they're usually tied to labor time and money. Now, caveat for you two, or if anybody watching this, if you say, I don't spend money on marketing, I don't value marketing, I'd like you to think again. Your website is marketing. Your LinkedIn is marketing. Your Facebook is marketing. All of those are part of it. Your business cards are marketing, right? Your bling, your brand on shirts, all of that is marketing. So I have yet to meet a business, even a startup, that isn't spending money on marketing and and most have not thought about this.
What do you typically see as a percentage of revenue of the best top firms, most successful firms spending on marketing?
To be fair, we're not talking with the best top rock star firms. We're talking with firms that are in the reality of running their business better and need help. And they are spending way more than 10% of their gross revenue on marketing.
Wow. Now, does that includes staff, internal staff, directed at marketing?
Or a provider? Yeah, let's say you have a marketing agency or marketing help. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
I was going to say 5%.
Yeah, that's what you
overall.
see.
But it depends
What's
on
a
the
5 to
size
10?
of the firm, right?
Right.
And how much they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a lot at zero, close to zero, right? They do their website, LinkedIn, and that's about it.
We spend five, I think, give or take.
I think it's how you spend, right? It would be, to be fair, it's just like how your people. That's great. They have the title. What are they really doing? Are they working well? Same with marketing. I think we have to think about that. I don't think I know. Okay. So how do we prioritize? So I just threw like the the techniques around the 4 pillars to you, but this is where people get stuck, is the prioritization. And so we actually have an answer for that. We call it the 4 Ps with the 4 W. Now, I can't claim to have created all this. Toyota and others have come up with the 4 W. And what that is when you think of an idea that you want to implement, the first thing you do is you write what it is. Then you write, why would I do it? And by the way, the why could be it improves people, productivity, profit, or presence. If you can't come up with the benefit of the why, it doesn't even make it to who should do it or when they should be done. There's nothing wrong with getting to the why and saying, I think I should, but I don't really know why, and tabling it. Some people call it the parking lot. I don't know, EOS probably has a place for, all these different systems have places. We just give it a name that helps that person and that team think about it properly. Then you get to the who and then the when. You never do the when before the who because the when is dependent on the person. If the leader of whatever that initiative is busy and working on something else, I don't think it's prudent to throw them another project. That's where we get burnout. So how do we bake it? This is how we bake it in. So we're a big fan of using project management systems. We do know that some CRMs have project tools in them, perfectly fine. What we do is we bake in the 4 Ws in this order, just like I spoke of. So if you're using like a Monday, Asana, Trello, blah, 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 there's so many, Basecamp, you can set up the system to work this way. You can use Excel if you'd like, as long as it's shared with the team. Okay. That's how you prioritize. Now, why does that work? Again, visualization, but prioritization, it actually helps you identify order. So by going through the what and the why, it will naturally have your brain click to better answers around the who and when. It's, again, we say it's just not rocket science. It's just how our brains work, how our guts work. So we just put it all in motion. Okay. Back to strengthen, how we did on time. Good job. Okay, so why do we strengthen the stats? We want consumers wanting to work with us, not worrying about the fact that we're going to get acquired or not survive. We want valuations to hold strong, not because we're greedy, but because those give us leverage to do deals. Those give us the ability, even with Gen 2. And internal succession. If you truly want to be independent, you have to be as strong as possible on these 4 pillars. Otherwise, you don't make it through the next generation and beyond. And that is not right. All right. ROI, time, less friction. I would say the less friction is the big win in mine. Increased pace of decisions and adoption. The ROI, there's stats behind that. So let me give you a story to go with that, and then we'll wrap up. And I had to write it because it just came to life. So we just worked with a firm. Then we started with them. They wanted to scale. That was their intent. And this firm, let's just say it's about 2 years, give or take a month or two. And they had 6 people on their team, plus they had a provider. Okay. In the roles and responsibilities, we identified 2 new hires and outsourcing the bookkeeping. Yeah, they were actually doing their own bookkeeping, right? Then after we did that, and by the way, their valuation started at 6 million, just so you have a ballpark there. Then from there, we did the profit, the P&L projections, and we did the marketing funneling. And that's when we decided we needed to start a little bit of marketing because they were near that 0 number except for website. And we exited the original founder who wanted to run out the door and invested in new investment technology. Valuations climbing because every year we did valuation. Then hired a biz dev coach, exited another advisor that was literally in his 80s and unfortunately had dementia. And then at that point, the value was up to 9, built-in processes through using IDOs, tech mapping with the staff. And by the way, the staff are very young, all in their early 30s for the most part. And then today, they've decided not to scale on their own. Life events, something happened with the founders, the younger founder's wife, and they're now at 18 million for valuation. They were willing to go through the exercises. They were willing to let their staff go through the exercises. And I think that's the most important takeaway I'd like to leave you with is that this is not for you guys as founders to bear on your own. This is for you to let your people help and draft and for you to come in and be the final decision makers. This is super important. Okay. So if nothing else, doing the role and responsibilities mapping and using the 4 Ws to do improvement planning, everything else that I showed you, great. If you do those 2, you're going to be off to the races on either the merger, the scaling, or like Karen, you said about acquisitions. I mean, you can use these same techniques with an acquisition, right? Doesn't. Collaboration, let your team jump in, please. We don't need to see any more burnouts. And that is the end of what I have to share.
It's great. Thanks for the structure.
You need it. Otherwise, you kind of fall apart,
Yeah.
right? We joke it's a sanity play. I mean, at the end of the day, this is hard work. It's meaningful. It has such huge impact. And we're all about consumers, as you can tell by the way. But we need to have the pillars are good for the business, but they're good for ourselves, right? They keep us within boundaries and structure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And will you share your deck?
Yeah, I'm going to do a Cliff Notes for you guys because I don't think you need every piece separate. So we'll give you the Cliff Notes. Carolyn's
Awesome.
going to send it out. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And we'll
I'm all
post the
about the bite
recording.
size.
Yeah.
What?
I was going to say we'll post the recording on the platform as
Yeah.
well if you want to go back to see any parts of it.
Yeah.
Great.
Anything else you want to see before I take it off the screen?
Or questions.
Any questions?
Asked them throughout.
Yeah, you asked them along the way, Lee. You're good. Same with you, Karen. Thanks for joining. I'm going to
So-
drop off and let you wrap up, Carolyn, because it's your group.
Yeah, thank you,
Okay.
Jen. This
Thank
was
you, Jen.
fabulous. I think all our firms need this, so I appreciate you sharing.
Any business owner needs it, right? It's just a
Right.
question of admitting. So there we go.
Thank you.
See you
The first
guys.
step. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Bye.
Talk soon. So I will get this up on the platform this afternoon. Feel free
Thank
to share it with your team.
Cool.
And I'll post the Zoom notes as well. Thank you all.
Thank you, Carolyn.